Welcome back to Amazing Life. This video is going to be extremely short. It's not going to be very cinematic. It's going to be pretty straight to the point. So you guys know that I've got a 2020 Jeep Diesel Wrangler JLU. As many of you know that have diesels, maintenance can be a bit expensive, and so that was a concern on my part as well. The reality is you can actually reduce a lot of those expenses just by doing a little bit of your own work. That said, I have to say I am not a mechanic by any means. I almost always take mine to the shop and they do whatever maintenance work is required to it. However, some things are just too easy not to do yourself, and so I wanted to show you how you can save about 150 bucks by doing this maintenance requirement that happens every other oil change. And what I'm talking about is the fuel filter. So diesel fuel is a little dirtier fuel, and as a result, it requires a lot more happening on the emissions side in order to make it a clean fuel on the exhaust. And so those emissions are very picky, and so they have a fuel filter in here that traps water, but then also particulates, and it's not cheap, okay? Actually, it is cheap. The fuel filter is only like 40 bucks, okay, 38 bucks, something like that. But if you go to the shop and have it changed, it's almost $190 to 200 and something, depending on where you get it done. What I have discovered is it's only like 4 bolts to change your own, and it's extremely easy to get to. And for those of you who have diesels, we know expenses are going up across the board, especially regarding diesel fuel. So maybe this will save you a little bit and keep a little bit more in your pocket. So here we go. Oh, and by the way, I always use the Mopar filters. This is the one that I bought. I actually got it from the dealership. In fact, I ordered 2 of them. They are, because of supply restraints and things like that, they couldn't even do my oil change. So I'm having them send me 2 oil filters in order to be able to change my own. That'll save another probably $150 to $200 on doing that. I think you can get third-party ones. I don't really like that idea. I kind of, especially when you've got a vehicle that's under warranty, I kind of like using the Mopar parts. So anyway, let's get this done. So for the skid plate, it just requires a 10 mil That's 3. Now it gets a little messy. There's a petcoat right here. In the event that you get water in your fuel, it'll catch in this prior to going into the engine. The entire fuel line is pressurized, and so this can actually help relieve the pressure on that line. It's also where it gets a little messy, so I've got an oil pan underneath in order to prevent that from like messing stuff up. There is a water sensor in the Jeep, so if it gets to the amount where it senses water, it will notify you, and of course at that point you really need to get under and release that. You do not have to take the skid plate off in order to release it. That's why the shape of this is the way it is, so that you can actually access that petcoat valve. So the next stage is to actually take the filter housing off, and then at that point we just swap out the filter. But we're going to release that valve first. It's actually diesel fuel coming through, so that's not a bad thing. So now we got a little bit of diesel fuel, and I'm gonna clean the camera up and we'll do the next part. Now that all the pressure is out of the system, I'm going to tighten the petcoat valve back up so it will be ready when we place it back in to service. And then I've got 1 1/8 inches, which is what fits this big lug here. It's pretty tight, but it's like, it's not hard, it's just tight. These rubber seals are doing their job. There's probably going to be some more that leaks through when I finish this off. Just gonna let that creep out. I'm just hand loosening it now so I can control the spill a little better. And then that's it. All right. There it goes. All right, at this point, the job is pretty much done. All you got to do now is take the new one out of your box and make sure that it has both seals. There are two seals. There's one on the bottom and one on the inside, that you want to make sure that it has both. So there is a seal right here that should be properly seated, and so you can just kind of run your finger around and see that it is. And then the second seal is a ring seal that goes around your cover, so you'll replace that. You get a new seal each time, which is good. It is recommended that you coat your new seals with a little diesel fuel to lubricate it. So I'm doing that. And then now I'm just replacing it around to put it up in that top section where it seats nicely all the way around. Can't even really see it again now. It's right there. So that's done. And then go ahead and take a little right there and just put it around that, because the fuel actually goes through there, so it's going to get wet anyway, but this will help insert it. And now we can move this out of the way, because it is no longer dripping. And now we can reinsert this one. You do want to make sure that that your new filter remains perfectly clean, particularly on the inside, because that's where the actual fuel goes. And there is a notch right here that has to fit up inside the seat. So you will notice when you pop it in, it'll only go a certain way. So when you put it in wrong, it stops about right there, and then you just rotate it until it does that, and then you know it's far enough, and then it should pop into place and hold. And once it's done that, you know it's in the perfect seat. And now we're ready to replace the cover again. Okay. You can definitely tell when you get to the stopping point. It just stops. It is all plastic, so certainly don't over tighten it. But you can tell kind of when you get there, because it stops. It's easy, and then it stops. So the next step before reinstalling the skid plate is to dry this off really good and ensure, and then we're going to prime it and crank it and make sure we don't have any leaks. So you want it really dry, and then you're going to want to run it for a little bit to ensure that you don't have any leaks. Next, we're going to prime it, but you got to be careful not to hit the brake when you push the start button. So by pushing the start button, it automatically turns on the pump, which will charge the engine. Now, online, I've seen anything from 7 times to 15 times that you have to do this in order to ensure that it's properly primed prior to cranking the engine. So anyway, here we go. We'll prime it, we'll prime it 5 times and see what happens. So I don't know if that came through or not on the audio, but I heard a pump priming, and so we've got it in the run position again, and so we'll turn it off and then we'll turn it back on. I'm gonna do this number of times. You don't need to see that. So this is what we're gonna do. All right, let's give it a shot. Okay, so it is running, obviously. It did struggle for a little bit, so it probably should have been primed a few more times. I think I primed it like 7 times, so just prime it a bunch. It's not, you can't over prime it. So lesson learned on that one. I'll do it more times next time. It didn't struggle for long, but yeah, a little easier on it if you have it fully primed before it tries. Now we need to check outside just to make sure that there's no leaks, and if there's no leaks, I'm good to go. All right, looks like it's staying dry, so now it's time to put the skid plate on, and I just saved myself 150 bucks. And it took, I don't know, I've been out here 30 minutes, and that was also dealing with filming it, so it's probably like a 15-minute job once now that I know what I'm doing. So 15 minutes for 150, yeah, all day long. All right, so just to recap, am I happy that I bought a diesel even though the expenses of maintaining it are more expensive? Yes, absolutely. I get 25 to 28 miles a gallon all day long. And I got about 21 miles a gallon pulling a trailer all the way to Oregon and back. So by far, your gas mileage is better with a diesel. With regard to maintenance, yes, the oil changes are more expensive. It does require more oil. The oil is more expensive. However, and then of course your fuel filter is more expensive as well. But it's on a 10,000 mile cycle. So whereas the others I think is like 5 or 6. So you're only doing it about half as often. So yeah, it's more expensive when you do it, but you're not having to do it as often. The fuel filter only has to be changed once every other oil change. So every 20,000 miles, you're changing the fuel filter. Unless of course you get into some bad fuel and you have to change it. So yes, those expenses are there. But again, if you do it yourself, you're spending $37 on a fuel filter every 20,000 miles. It's not a big deal. I love the torque in the engine. I love the gas mileage that I do get, which means I get good range. And when I do want to pull something, it actually has the power to pull it. So if you want to compare this to the 392 probably has way more power, but also you're going to be burning a lot more fuel. So I'm very happy with the Eco-Diesel. So I have now got 45,000 miles on it. Pretty much all I have done is drive it. There was a seal that was leaking in the front part of the engine that they replaced under warranty, and beyond that, it's been rock solid. So very happy with it. For those of you who are either considering an Eco-Diesel or have one, dude, do this yourself. It's way too easy. Save you a bunch of coin. So I will be coming out with an oil video soon. I was going to do it today. I just don't have time to actually change the oil. So I'm going to do that next as soon as I get back from More Expo over in Springfield, Missouri. So I'll be over there this weekend, and by the time this comes out, I will have already been there. So anyway, hope this helps. As always, make life amazing.